She kept one grey cardigan for 11 years. She wore it to weddings, to funerals, to church on Christmas morning, and to the market every single day in between. When people asked why she never bought a new one, she would smile and say the same thing every time. This one still has work left in it. Nobody thought much of that answer, not until the day they opened her bank account and found out exactly how much work that cardigan had done. Her name was Rosalind Joseph. She raised 3 children alone in a small flat in Nugu after her husband died young, leaving her with a market stall, 200 naira, and a promise she made to herself in the dark the night she buried him. Nobody heard that promise. She never repeated it out loud, not even once, not even when her children were grown and asking questions. But that promise was the reason for everything that came after. The reason for the cardigan, the reason for the empty kitchen shelf, the reason for every no she gave her children when they asked for something small. She told them plainly, more times than they could count, "We do not have savings. What comes in this week is spent by the weekend. God will provide for what is left." And they believed her, because there was nothing in the house that suggested otherwise. The fridge held only what was needed for that day. The furniture was the same furniture from 20 years before, patched in the same 3 places. She wore rubber slippers to the market even in the rain, saving her one good pair of shoes for church. If she had money hidden anywhere, she hid it well enough to fool the 3 children who lived under her roof and loved her most. Her first child, Ngozi, remembers a specific Tuesday in secondary school when the fees were due, and her mother sat at the kitchen table for almost an hour, moving small piles of naira notes from one side of the table to the other, counting them again and again, as if counting differently might make more of them appear. Ngozi remembers the sound most of all, the quiet slap of each note landing on the table, over and over, in a kitchen that had no other sound in it that night. Her second child, Ifeanyi, remembers a birthday with no cake, only boiled corn and a song sung slightly off-key, and his mother's hand on his shoulder saying, "Next year we will do better." He was 7. He did not understand yet what doing better would cost her. Her last child, Gloria, remembers her mother's hands most clearly, rough from years at the sewing machine, cracked at the knuckles from washing other people's clothes on weekends for extra money. Always moving, never still, never resting even when the day's work was supposedly finished. Rosalind Joseph worked 6 days a week at her tailoring store, stitching school uniforms and wedding dresses for a neighborhood that never stopped needing both. On the 7th day, when the church service ended, she would come home and mend clothes for neighbors who could not afford a full tailor's price. She charged them almost nothing. She told her children it was because she liked to stay busy. What she never told them was where every one of those small extra payments went. She raised all 3 children on a diet of rice, beans, and quiet sacrifice, and she did it without complaint, without bitterness, and without ever making her children feel the weight of what she was carrying. That, more than anything, is what made her disappearance from this world so hard to accept. She did not look tired. She looked like a woman who had simply learned how to carry a heavy thing so well that it no longer showed on her face. She passed away on a Sunday morning in March, sitting in her favorite chair by the window, a half-finished school uniform still in her lap. The doctor said her heart had simply stopped, quietly, the way she had done most things in her life. Her 3 children came home for the burial, grief-stricken and unprepared, the way children always are, no matter how old they had become. It was Ngozi, the eldest, who was given the task of clearing out her mother's small room. She expected to find very little: a few dresses, a Bible with a cracked spine, maybe some old photographs. She did not expect to find, tucked beneath a folded stack of fabric at the bottom of an old wooden trunk, a slim blue passbook, its cover soft and worn from handling, its corners rounded with age. She almost put it back without opening it. It looked like nothing, the kind of forgotten paperwork every old person keeps out of habit. But something made her open the front page, and the moment she did, her hands went still. The account had been opened 31 years earlier. The date on the very first entry matched almost exactly the week Ngozi herself was born. She called her brother and sister into the room without explaining why. The three of them sat on the floor together, the way they had not sat together since they were children, and turned the pages one by one. The deposits were small. Some were only a few hundred naira. Some were barely enough to notice, but they were constant. Every single month, without fail, for over 30 decades, a small amount had gone into that account and simply stayed there, untouched, growing quietly the way a tree grows, so slowly you can't see it happening, until one day you look up and it has become something enormous. Ifeanyi did the math out loud, his voice shaking slightly. She never missed a month, not one, not even the year Papa died, not even the year the shop flooded. Gloria found something folded inside the back cover, a single sheet of paper in her mother's handwriting, dated the year each of them had finished secondary school. Beside each child's name was a small note, not instructions, not a will, just a private accounting, written only for herself, of what she had managed to set aside for each of them and what she still hoped to add before she was done. Ngozi remembered the day her fees were due, the day of the naira notes sliding back and forth across the kitchen table. She had always believed her mother somehow scraped that money together at the very last moment, out of nothing, through sheer will. She now understood that the money had been sitting in an account the whole time, and her mother had chosen deliberately, painfully not to touch it, because touching it meant breaking something she had promised herself she would never break. Ifeanyi remembered the birthday with no cake and understood now that the money for that cake had likely gone somewhere else that month, toward that same quiet account, one more small deposit, one more brick in a wall she was building for a future none of them could see yet. Gloria remembered her mother's cracked hands, the endless washing, the endless mending, and understood finally that those hands had not just been tired, they had been working towards something specific, something patient, something none of her children were ever meant to discover until she was gone. The account had grown, slowly and steadily, into an amount that stunned all three of them into silence. Not a fortune, not the kind of number that changes a person's life in one moment, but enough to have paid off Ngozi's rent for a full year during the season she nearly lost her apartment and never told anyone. Enough to have covered Ifeanyi's hospital bill the year he was too proud to ask his siblings for help. Enough now, sitting untouched, to give each of them something her mother never once asked for permission to give, a beginning that did not start from zero. There was no dramatic reveal, no lawyer's office, no reading of a will in front of strangers. There was only 3 grown children sitting on their mother's bedroom floor, holding a thin blue passbook, understanding for the first time what 31 years of a grey cardigan, rubber slippers, and quiet Sunday mending were really paying for. They didn't spend the money right away. For almost a month, nobody touched it. It felt to all 3 of them less like an inheritance and more like a message, proof of something her mother never said out loud, but has spent 30 decades saying with her hands instead. When they finally used it, they used it the way she would have wanted. Ngozi paid off the last of her rent debt without telling a single soul, the same quiet way her mother had once handled hard things. Ifeanyi kept a small portion untouched in a new account of his own and began adding to it every single month, the same amount on the same date, a habit he could not explain to anyone but understood completely himself. Gloria framed the single page of handwritten notes and hung it in her home, not as decoration, but as a reminder of what real love sometimes looks like: quiet, unglamorous, and easy to miss until it is far too late to say thank you. Rosalind never once called herself a provider beyond what was needed for that day. She never asked her children to notice her sacrifice. She never even hinted that there was more beneath the surface than 3 simple meals and 1 grey cardigan worn for 11 years straight. She simply did the work month after month, year after year, without witnesses, without applause, and without any guarantee that her children would ever understand what it had cost her. That is the truest shape sacrifice often takes. Not the loud kind, the kind that announces itself and waits to be praised. The quiet kind, the kind that shows up in a passbook nobody was ever supposed to find, growing steadily in the dark, long after the person who built it has already gone. If this story moved you, share it with someone whose sacrifice you haven't fully understood yet. Because somewhere, right now, someone is wearing the same coat for the 11th year in a row, and they are not doing it because they have nothing left to give. They are doing it because they are still giving, quietly, to someone who has not yet realized how much it is truly costing them. Some victories don't make noise. They simply change everything. See you in the next payoff story. This is Payoff Stories, where every sacrifice finds its reward and every story has its payoff.